So my name's Tony Everett. I am with My Personal Best Coaching. We know that there is a mental game problem with young athletes today. We focus so much on the physical aspect of teaching kids, but very little is done on the mindset mastery for youth in sports. So I focus my coaching on mindset mastery for student athletes. And beyond that, I help coaches understand what it means to help their kids with the mental game. And I've also got a program where I'm running things like this for corporate leaders to help them understand what it means to set goals and be organized for the year. So a lot of what I do is around mindset mastery for corporate leaders and people who want to really take life seriously, in as much as I'm going from here to here. Any change creates fear. And so we want to help them overcome that and step beyond that and step into their brilliance. That's part of my why, is to help people believe in themselves so they can step boldly into their brilliance. I think that's important. So today, what we're going to do is define our year. We're going to have a little theme for the year. We live through our world and see the world through a series of lenses, and typically those lenses are put there by other people. As student athletes, they're typically put there by their parents and coaches, because this is how we do things. Corporations, the corporate leaders set the tone for their staff to be able to kind of do things. So when they look at what they're doing and decisions they're making, they see the lens not through their own, they see the world, sorry, not through their own lenses, but lenses that have been put there by someone else. And so it's important that we have a theme, because that theme creates the lens through which we see the world. So when it comes to making decisions, we are much, much better at making decisions that suit our needs and goals rather than making other people happy. So that's the warm-up exercise. We'll skip that. What I want us to do, if you've got a pen and paper handy, I should have primed you for that. Pen and paper handy. What I want you to do is I want you to just take a moment to reflect on 2024. What were the most outstanding achievements that you went through in 2024? Just one or two will do. I want you to think of, the highlight reel. What were some of the bullet points that went, yeah, that was fantastic? For me, it was the creation of My Personal Best Coaching, game ready confidence stuff that I'm running with kids, right? I'm like so happy that I created that. That was a high point. So we look back at our positive moments, because obviously that creates in our mind's eye that positive thought as we look forward. But now I want to think about what the challenge is. What challenge did you face, and what did they teach you? Looking at the challenges and what those challenges taught you. Again, it's an important factor to go, oh yeah, I overcame that. Right. I had a day job. I was let go from my day job at the end of October, and it was devastating at the time. And it was a challenge. But what it did was it allowed me to step into this coaching role that I'm doing now wholeheartedly and full force. And I haven't looked back since. So it taught me to follow my dreams and to go for it. And then fear plays a role in our life, and fear creates hesitation. So what fear or hesitation may have held you back at doing something last year? Um, this is important to understand, because fear is like it's like an overriding pack of rodents gnawing this behind the scenes. And if we just ignore them, it doesn't take away the problem. The rats are still there. We just seem to be running away from it, which doesn't solve the problem. We could fight back and try and fight them, but then that just creates a different type of conflict. So what we want to do is be aware of our fear and understand that it's there. Fear is an indicator to either show you that you care about something and so step into it wholeheartedly, or that you're going down the wrong path to turn around and go the other way. Fear is an indicator that we want to be really aware of. So what were some of the fears or hesitations that could have held you back last year as well? And we'll actually take that as a placeholder, because we're going to come back to that as we look to set our goals further in the presentation. So if we've made our notes there, I'm going to move on. I see people still writing, so I'm not going to rush it. Okay, so as we look back to our year, what we're now going to do is we're now going to look forward to what 2025 could be for us. So this is we're going to do a closed eye exercise, visualization exercise. So what I want us to do, if you're comfortable, just sit there, take a deep breath, relax the shoulders, close your eyes. You take another deep breath in, let go of all of the tension, let go of all of the distractions, and allow your mind to focus on the possibilities ahead. Everything that's possible in the year of 2025. Now imagine it's December of 2025. You're sitting in your most favorite place. You're comfortable, you're happy, and you're reflecting on the year that just passed. The air around you feels calm, and you're filled with a sense of clarity and joy. And just take a deep breath in and breathe that clarity in. Feel it, sense it, know what it feels like. Now I want you to picture the moments that made this year extraordinary. I want you to see yourself achieving your biggest goals, overcoming challenges, and growing in ways that you didn't think possible. You just sit there in your mind's eye. What did you accomplish? What were the moments that made you proud? I want you to think about the person you've become. Are you more confident, resilient, focused? How do you feel about the way that you've shown up for yourself and for others? Again, in your mind's eye now, just ask yourself, what emotions are you feeling right now about the year? Pride, gratitude, inspiration, fulfillment? What words would describe your journey this year? Maybe it's growth, discipline, or courage. Just take a moment to let those words settle in. Let them guide your vision for the year ahead. Now, gently bring your focus back to the present. And when you're ready, take a deep breath and open your eyes. All right, we're just going to move on through this now. I want you to hold on to that little visualization that you saw. I want you to answer these 3 questions. What really do you want to feel about the year ahead? What's that feeling that you want to have at the end of the year? Inspired, fulfilled? Just think through that for a couple of seconds. And I love this question. What kind of person do you want to have become? If I'm walking down the street and I bump into Stephen, who do I meet? I want you to think of that. Who is the person that I meet? Successful, patient. And then out of those 2 lists, I want you to think about the words that would describe your journey through the year. What are the words that would describe your journey? And the reason we're doing this is because we want to create a theme. And the theme is one, two, or three words that you're going to use as your lens through which to see the world. Um, and so the theme is, like I said, one, two, or three. Out of all of the words that you wrote down there, what are kind of some of the examples that you've got there? It could be courage, growth, and exploration. It could be grit, resilience, inspiring. As I went through this exercise myself this year, my three words that really came out and really spoke to me was growth, adventure, and learning. And so as I look at the year ahead, I think I want to be growing, constantly growing. And so when someone like Miriam says to me, "Hey, do you want to do this presentation about goal setting?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm in," because that means I'm growing. It means I'm stepping beyond my comfort zone and and growing into a new person. I'm learning. I'm going to be signing up for classes and courses because, yes, I want to grow and I want to learn. But I also want to explore and adventure. I want to take trips and I want to see what the world is going on around me. So if there's an opportunity for me to go somewhere, I'm like, yeah, I'm in, let's go. And this is the lens through which I'm going to see the world. And when decisions come my way, when choices come my way, when I'm setting goals for the year, I now know through which to set them, if that all makes sense. So who would like to share their one, two, three, or words that they've got as their theme for this year?
I'm happy to share. Um, I wrote down fulfillment, growth, and kind of two-word part, but no excuses.
Nice. I like that. Tell me more about the no excuses. Interested to hear about that.
Yeah, I think quite often it's easy to come up with reasons why you did or did not do things. And sometimes on my list, I always kind of chop it up to, well, I'll get to that. And I
Mm,
just couldn't get to it now. And, I got a busy schedule and I'll give myself all these reasons to make me feel better. But at the end of the year, I was looking back like, damn, there were some things I didn't do that I really wanted to do.
mhm.
So I'm trying to have a mindset of not giving myself an easy opt out, an excuse, and really kind of pushing myself to get uncomfortable in those situations and just be more intentional with my time to make sure I can do it.
Brilliant. Love it. Can I step in and say one thing there, Stephen?
Yeah.
I love that what you're doing there. The words we use have power. And if you're going to create this theme of no excuses, be careful of the words that you use because you actually said, I'm trying to create. And I would challenge you and say, don't try and create, just create. Because if I said to you, I'm going to try and make your party this coming weekend, what am I really saying to you?
Yeah.
I'm not going to be there, right? I can make excuses. And so if you don't want to make excuses, then be intentional about what you say and just be aware of that word try. Because if it's coming up there, it will probably come up somewhere else. And so that will be the way that your mind creates a backdoor.
Love it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anyone else like to share?
I can share. Yeah, I think my I actually have four. It'll eventually get to three probably, but hopeful, confident, like with having direction and grounded.
Mm, I like that. Tell me more about the grounded. What does grounded mean?
Yeah, grounded means to me is when I'm fully embodied. So I'm not
Mm,
caught in anxiety. I'm not distant in my thoughts. Like I'm very present. And I feel often comes with, yeah, I feel like it's more peaceful, like I'm in the moment.
yeah, cool. And I'd recommend that we do this as we go through our words, that we put into it a little descriptive of what it means, because we can create the meaning of that word then as well. I often look at the dictionary and say, what's the dictionary meaning? And then I will also create my own meaning and definition from that. It helps me kind of step into the words fully.
I love it,
Miriam,
twins.
would you like to share?
Yeah. I had some similar words to Shelly. Hopeful was one. I actually have four. Well, I guess I could be three. So, hopeful, adventure, and I had full of joy, but I actually replaced it by supportive
Mm.
because, and I know you're gonna ask me why, so I'm gonna tell you why. I replaced it by supportive because I actually feel full of joy when I support a lot of people around me and in a lot of the activities that I do. And so if I'm supportive, I will be full of joy. So I guess they
Cool.
go out together, but yeah.
Yeah, that's really great. Yeah. And the cool thing is, I've done this a couple of times now, and the words are yours, right? These are your themes. And the really cool thing and the powerful thing about doing this is it creates this idea of I know where I'm going this year. There's a clarity about the decisions I can make because it fits the theme. And the other thing I'm going to add to this, as you go through this, if you find a word not quite fitting with the direction you want to take your life this year, change it. Simply change the theme, but dig in and find out why, and then find out what another word might be for that. Now I want us to think about creating our goals as we look into the next year. You can create goals in many ways, and there are areas of your life that you can challenge yourself to set goals in. You can pick one area of your life, you can pick multiple areas of your life. There's health and wellness, there's finance, there's relationships, there's travel, there's all sorts of ways. Goal setting is a personal thing. There's no one way to do it. So whatever works for you. Typically, what we know is if you have 2 or 3 goals for the year, that's a good number to go for. Any more than that, and you're overloading the brain. The other thing that I would encourage us to do as we set our goals is don't actually share them. There's some brain science around sharing goals that when you set them, you see them from a 30,000 feet elevation. And so it's really exciting to set a goal. But when it comes down to doing the work to get to a goal, then the brain starts to rebel against that. And if you've already stated it and shared it with a lot of other people or someone, the brain goes, well, I've kind of done this already because I've shared it out loud. And so you're better off keeping the goal to yourself, the goal, and we'll get into what you can share, the goal to yourself, because it keeps the excitement alive, right? Of setting that goal. When you look at it, it releases the dopamine and gets you going. So when it comes down to the hard work, the daily tasks, the action, the no excuse action that we're going to set ourselves, you're more likely to be able to dive into it and jump into and get this done. So I've created this grit model of goal setting. It's growth oriented, so goals should push you right towards personal or professional outcomes. And I would say work on the process rather than the outcomes, right? So a good example of this is sports, especially. I want to win today is a goal that I hear from my students. Well, that's out of your control. What's in your control? And a growth-oriented goal is much more within your control. I want it risky and reachable. And risky is that as a good example of that. Imagine yourself in the ocean and you're about up to your neck, you're on tiptoes in the water, and then a wave comes up and it lifts you off the sand. And you feel that exhilaration of like, oh, I'm in too deep. And then it kind of brings you back down. There's some safety there. So risky pushes you a little bit, but we also want them reachable. Impact focus. So it should align with what matters to you. It should align to your theme and then time bound. That's obviously the important one. By November 21st, by December, whatever it is, time bound. So that's the model in which we're going to set our goals. So take a moment to think about and write down one goal that you would like to achieve this year. Just focus on one right now. And I want you to focus on an area of your life, whether it be health, finance, business, personal, relational. Think about a goal that you've got for this year. And then as you write that goal down, how do you feel about it? What's a feeling that comes up when you write that goal down. When I wrote my goal down for the year, there was certainly some excitement there for me, but there was also this sense of, oh crap, I don't know if I can do that. There was a little bit of fear that caught in my stomach. So how do you feel? What's a feeling that you got as you write that goal down?
You're asking us to share, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think for me, it's not necessarily fear, but once you've written it down, it's the seriousness of it, you know? It's like, okay, it's written down now. It's gotta, I have to do it.
Yeah.
There is no stepping back. So it's not, I don't describe it really as like fear. More, and now that it's written down, it matters. It's gotta happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else want to share that?
Yeah, I can reason with that because I feel like for me, it's like once it's written down, it's stated. It's something that you've put out there, and you're striving for it, which is actually coincidental because this week is when I just kind of wrote down most of my goals. But I will say too, there is this, at least for me, this portion of anxiety with it because it's like it's risk averse, but also it's like the feeling of, man, I can't wait to get to that point. And what is it going to take for me to get to that point? I don't know. I'm going out into an unknown territory to a certain extent, but that's a goal of mine. And I think if I'm able to do that, then I'm going to look back and say, man, I did that. But there's some anxiety that comes with it.
Yeah. Yeah. The brain does not like uncertainty. And so when it looks at unknowing, it goes, ooh, don't do that. Yeah. Shelley.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I can resonate with all those things. And it's funny because I'm like writing a goal down and I don't know if it's the feeling I have for that particular goal, but I just sense like, oh, it's going to be a grind. Like it just feels, you know, it's not like, I think when you said, well, you excited about it? And I'm like, no, but I kind of wish like that I was excited about the goals more. Like, is that a sign, you know, like is that something I should look at too of like, well, if I'm not excited about it, why am I doing it? But I also think that's part of my story of like, yeah, that's, you know, grinding to get to wherever I'm going next. And one of mine's more business focused. And so, or direction focused with what I career. So yeah, that's kind of makes me a little sad that I feel that way, you know, but it's good
Embrace
to know.
it. Embrace it. That's a good thing because it is a grind. That's what we got to remember every day. It's going to be a grind, right? If you really want to grow and you really want to accomplish what you want, it's not going to just land on your lap. There are no silver platters in this world. You've got to work towards it. And then you feel that much more accomplished when you get there, which is the beauty of it. And again, so now we look at these doubts and fears, right? Or excitement. There's always going to be this thing when we're stepping into the unknown. The brain doesn't like setting a goal because it's future focused. And when we look at the brain, 80% of the thoughts we have are actually negative. So when we're looking future focused, it doesn't like the goals because that's the positive, that's the 20%, right? And it struggles to keep hold of that because it goes, well, what if I don't do it? What if I can't do it? What if this happens? What if that happens? So doubt, fear kind of creeps in, but there is excitement at the same time underneath that. And so I want you to I want you to look at your goal and think about what could be some of the hesitations that hold you back. What could be some of a fear that might knock you off track? What are some of the excuses we might make as these goals appear? What could be a potential roadblock? This, when you write that down, this actually helps you plan for it. And as an example of that, when I first moved to America, I thought I would take a psychology class. And local here, they've got Saddleback College, and I thought I'll sign up. So I signed up online, got everything done, ready to go, paperwork put in, and I was never very good at school. I was not a learner in school, so I was really pushing myself anyway. Drove down to Saddleback, Parked in the community college parking spots, walked across campus, got to the door. I put my hand out to the door and then turned around and walked away. And I did not even walk in the class. And I look back at that moment and think, wow, if I had have known the fear that would have come up as I was coming to that classroom, and what was happening was my whole youth flashed before me and all of the classrooms that I'd sat in before, and all of that fear came up in one moment, and I didn't walk into the classroom because that's the experience that I had with school. If I'd have known this, I would have been able to preempt that and then make plans to overcome that inner voice to say, no, 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 that was then, this is now. We can step into this, right? And what it allows us to do is it allows us to flip the script on our fears and doubts so we can reframe some of those things. I had a fear, or I had a conversation in my head at the time that I'm not good enough. So when I got to that door and it said, I'm not good enough, I turned around and walked away. But if I would have been prepared, I could have said, oh, hang on a second, I'm learning every day. And now that gives me the confidence and the ability to overcome the fear and step in. The fears and doubts that you had last year that got in the way are the same fears and doubts that will come up this year that will also get in the way. This is why I got you to write them down and name them earlier on. And when I talked about this invasion of rats in our life, and we tend to avoid them, right? Or we fight against them, but it creates the same conflict. What you're actually doing is you're giving fear energy when you ignore it or fight against it. So the way to work through it is to acknowledge it. I know that you're there. I'm not good enough. I hear you, right? Fear is just a lighthouse telling us to avoid the rocks, potential rocks and hazards. So it's natural. I see you. I hear you. It's a past story. You got to remember, I am learning every day is my new script, and I can tell myself that. And now I befriend my fear. And by befriending your fear, what you actually do is you turn it into a nice cuddly sheep that follows you around everywhere. The fear never goes away. You just change it from a rat to a sheep. That's it. So as you set your goals, fears, doubts, things like that will come up. I want you to look at it. The grind, Shelley, that you're talking about, it's a grind. Well, knowing that, how do we make it less of a grind? How do we reframe that from it being a grind to something a little bit more positive and appetizing? It could be this is the work needed to get to where I want. It's still a grind, but I'm changing it to this is the work needed to get to where I want. Make sense?
Yeah,
Anyone
and
else?
I was just gonna follow up with a thought too, as you're saying that. It's like it makes me think of like, well, where did that fear originate, right? Like, so playing soccer at a high level, it's consuming. And I think there's that consumption piece for me that is where the tie between like current day fear and past day fear and the root of that. So I think like noticing that and realizing like, hey, I'm not there either. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not the same person. I'm not in the same situation is also helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that saying of that was then, this is now. It's not my saying, I stole it from a book somewhere, but I use it often because I remember, oh yeah, my school days, that was then. I'm a whole different person today. This is now. Anyone else want to go through a fear and then reframe it? Go on then, Stephen.
No, I was just reflecting because I think as athletes, I feel like we are very tough on ourselves. In situations, and like we can have a little bit of that fear and anxiety going into it just because like we have this process of trying to be the best and try to be perfect in it, right? Um, and I think oftentimes for me, when I am self-aware and I'm willing to admit, like, okay, I may not have been good at this right now, but I am working through it. And me admitting that first, because if I'm just delusional and saying like, oh, I'm an expert at this and I'm really not, then it's not helpful either.
Yeah.
So I think to a certain extent, part of it is, yeah, flipping the script and it's a reframe, but it's also acknowledging, like you said, the existence of that feeling, the existence of where you currently are in that moment,
Mhm.
and then taking that and coming up with an actionable step to kind of move forward versus sitting in it and just soaking in the feeling that, oh, I am not good enough for this situation. You can always get better at it. So having an athlete's mindset in that regard is like, well, I'm striving to be better. I'm sucking at it right now, but I got to get better at this in that same way, kind of using it in life.
Yep. Could not agree with you more. It's fantastic. All right. So here's what you're going to start sharing. You're actually going to then break your big goal down into these actionable steps. And the key is taking action and completing, because the completion of something gives you energy to move to the next task. We sometimes feel like, I'm tired, I haven't got the energy to complete that task, so we don't complete it. And then in the not completion, what that actually does is it puts more of a burden on us and tires us out even more. So again, thinking about the reframing, what we want to do is just reframe what we consider complete. In other words, if I know I've got a report due and it's a 30-page report and that's complete, that might be overwhelming for me. But if I actually break that down to a week and then say, okay, I am going to complete it by doing 7 pages a day. Now completion is just 7 pages. And then completing 7 pages gives me the energy to do the next action. But taking action is sometimes the hardest thing that we can do to the goal, because as you said, Shelley, it becomes a grind. Oh, I've got to do that and I don't want to, right? And the goal suddenly disappears because there's no more dopamine there. It's now action time, right? In sports, this is the extra lap. This is I got to do grid sprints again, right? I've got to get all of that stuff. So it's stepping into taking action and completing, right? And we put dates on this and we snip it up into bite-sized pieces, and we're able to then go, okay, here's my to-do list. Check, check, check. But then the to-do list can grow. We know that. Make sure that we've got a second list, which is a done list. And we actually transfer the to-do into the done, and we grow our done list. Growing our done list creates more excitement, encouragement, and we want to do it more. So grow that and share your action plan with an accountability partner. What I've got is I like to get, when I'm working with my students, I get them to partner with someone and share this action plan. And as athletes, Stephen, you said it, we have to be perfect at this. It doesn't have to be a perfect action plan. If you've got one step on your action plan, it's an action plan. One step is enough because it moves you down the pathway. The next step you'll become aware of it as you make that next step. So don't feel perfect. Get one action for your goal. Find an accountability partner, share it, and then move on, right? And then we can create more actions from there. Just interested, has anyone got a first action towards their goal?
Actually, Tony can share not the overall goal, but the full action plan, which is basically, and I can share the partner as well. I started this in December, so it was a bit early. But I am doing an hour workout every morning when I wake up. And my goal is to do it every single day. My daughter is the partner in crime. And she's definitely more motivated than I am, so it's been great. But I can relate to Shelly at times and Kelsey as well. Like there are days where it's been a grind. I started in end of November, so there are days where it's a grind, and there are days where I'm really excited. And it just goes like this. So I think it's quite normal to go in and out of the grind.
Yeah.
because
Um,
otherwise it wouldn't be, it's just like the wave image that you had. Otherwise it wouldn't be a stretch goal, right? Like,
yep. Yeah.
And for me, the stretch goal is because it's every day, no excuses.
Yeah.
You've got, and if you don't do it in the morning, well, then you've got to find a way sometime during that day where it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to correct you in one thing there, if that's okay, Miriam.
yeah.
It's not your goal to do it every day. It's your commitment to do it every day. There's a big difference in
It's
just
my
saying it
pleasure. Are you
those two
kidding me?
ways.
It's my joy to do it every day.
Right, that's it. Right. Because there's a bigger goal sitting out there. This is part of your action plan. So it's your commitment and joy to get it done every day. And that allows
And
you
it's
to
actually a great rephrase, because I usually, the days where I'm feeling I start and I'm like, oh, that's the grind. And after 5 minutes and I'm like, oh no, I'm lucky to have the grind. And then I'm like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Yeah. Sometimes it's actually
Yeah.
finding that something to be thankful for being there in that moment. I talk to my soccer players all the time about this. They're losing, whatever, they're having a tough game. I was like, be thankful that you're on a pitch. Be thankful that you can be here and run around and play. What else can you be thankful for? And then suddenly it changes their mindset because we're reframing it just a little bit. So yeah, for sure. Any questions, comments, concerns, riddles, one-liners, jokes? Oh, I can't read that.
I've intentionally switched my language to say I get to instead of I have to. That's a good one.
Yeah. Seriously, I have been so aware of this over the last 4 months. The words we use have so much power in how we show up. And so be very aware of the words we use. I'm correcting my family about it all of the time because they're like, oh, I've got to go to school. And I'm like, well, of course you're not going to enjoy school if you go into it like that. I've got to go to school, right? So it's working to rephrase it all the time. And I do it in my life often. Cool. That's it. That's all I've got. Miriam, over to you.
Right. Thanks, Tony. I guess, but I shared on the last exercise. I wasn't sure if anybody else wanted to share their little action step if you had one. Or not yet.
I'll just comment on the done list. I'm a type A personality, and with all of my work, I like to have a checklist and to say like, okay, I did some things, because there's so many things that happen throughout the day that you forget. But I like the endorphins that I get from the checking of the box, right?
Yeah.
I have neglected to keep that box there so that I can appreciate and reflect on, oh, wait, look at all of the things that I did. Because I focus on the things that I didn't do yet. They're still there that need to be checked. And I'm like, I need to do these. So it's now on my to-do list for tomorrow versus, oh man, I did 5 things a day. I should feel pretty good about that, you know? And that's something, as you mentioned this, that's something that I want to do a better job of. And I will do a better job of, because I get so frustrated with the things that I still haven't accomplished versus looking back and reflecting. And when I talk about it, it's like, damn, okay, I actually did a lot, even though I didn't feel like I did.
Yeah. What I've started to do is at the end of every day, I write one thing I'm proud of for the day. It helps me go, oh yeah, I did a great job of that. Right. I've got my done list, but the one thing I'm proud of, it really kind of elevates me over nighttime. And I'm like, cool. That was a good day.
Yeah. Also look at what I'm looking for. What I'm looking forward to. I've been trying to be like, especially on the weekend, towards the end of the weekend, it's like, oh, what am I looking forward to this week? That would make this week really brilliant. That really helps not having a case of a Sunday night. It's kind of nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Tony, do you have any, I have one question on the, like, when you're looking at your goals, how often do you suggest revisiting those? Obviously you put them in increments based on the year, but even within that, say 3 months, if you're going to divide it into 4, how often do you think you should revisit that?
So I do mine daily, and I do mine daily because I've got a planner. It's actually a full focus planner. And so what I actually do is I've got my goal at the front, and then what ends up happening is on a Sunday, I plan my week and I put my big 3 things that I'm going to achieve for this week. And then every day I then go my big 3 things today off the big 3 for the week, which comes from my goal. So I'm kind of constantly referring back to it on a daily basis. And I'm just seeing how I'm progressing and if it still fits my life. So I'm when I look back at what I'm doing, it's a daily reminder of what my goal is, right? That's the daily reminder. But then that allows me the flexibility to pivot or change direction, alter course as needed as I'm going through. But it's up to you. That's completely down to you. Some people set a goal at the beginning of the year and then they'll check it in June and go, how am I doing with this? It's just not my personality type. I don't like to do that. I like to stay in contact with it. It's down to the individual. So whatever you're comfortable with. That's not a great answer, but whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah, and I understand that we're like, there's no formula per person, right? Like we're also different, and even how we interact with goals. Like some people might not feel like, I had a friend be like, I don't do goals because I don't get motivated by them. I actually find them unmotivated, like, and so, so I think but that's helpful though. Like you incorporate it in a daily, which makes sense because then you're always aware of where your goals are. I think I've just like left them and then came back like a year later. That was fine too. But, I didn't know if there was any research too on like typically, every 2 months or whatever, take a look. Thank you.
And I think it also depends on the type of goal that you're setting. When I say I check mine in daily, it is my work goal that I'm really working towards this year. I've got another personal goal around travel. Well, I'm not checking that every day. I'm like, oh yeah, I've got to do that. So let's get it on my to-do list. And so I'm checking that less frequently.
But Shirley, I think you're making a good point because I've heard quite a few athletes and former athletes saying, well, I've had a lot of goals when I was an athlete and it's a grind and I don't want to be setting this again. Like it's too much. But I wonder if you if you focus on a routine or some things that you want to achieve every day, this eventually will make a bigger goal, but perhaps with those individuals, we can start from there. They just don't necessarily need to have a formulated goal. That's a big one, right?
Yeah, and one of the issues that goal setting has is a lot of people don't know why they're setting the goal. It's being set for them by someone else, by their coach, by their parents, by society, right? They're setting it because they feel they have to. And then suddenly it really does become a grind. When you're a soccer player, when you're an athlete, tap into your why more often, then the goal and the grind becomes less of a grind and more of a joy. Tap into the why, tap into the theme, right? What is it that drives you more than anything? What brings you joy? Then set the goals around that to then actually steer your life. And I think that too many goals, we all want lots of money and big houses and whatever it is, because society says that's success. Well, really, do we want to set that goal, or are we doing it because we feel we have to? And if we feel that we have to, then the goal is going to feel painful.
No, that's a bar.
Yeah, right. Yes.
I think it's funny too, because you think about, if you have an occupation and you do goal setting at work, and it's like you're doing goal setting as an organization and then as an individual to meet a goal, accomplish something that's going to help the organization. But half the time you're not really tied to it. Just like, well, I got to do it now because it's going to help me get my performance evaluation and get my raise. And but it's not what's driving me. So I tap into the why a lot and just thinking about like, why am I here? What is my impact? What am I looking to do? And using that as motivation to kind of constantly move forward on the daily grind, because the grind happens. And if you're not attached to the goal and you're having to do the goal, it's just gonna feel like work. It's like, I gotta do this versus I want to do this.
Yep. Couldn't agree
Yeah,
more.
and Tony, I think that's a great point for athletes to, like, if you are struggling with setting up goals that are not the one of your teams or the one of your employers, going back to what what brings you joy on a regular basis, like that's definitely what you can dive deeper.
Yep.
Great.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was fun.
Thank you so much.
Have
All
a good
right.
year. Have a fantastic year. Here's to our goals.
Absolutely. Love it. Thank you, Tony.
Cheers.
All
Take
right.
care.
Bye.
Bye.